Developed by the Kaufman Foundation of Kansas City. Its purpose is to engage and encourage and support entrepreneurs. I just figured I needed to start talking. So please, I have students here. You all need to come in and sit or stand or sit in someone's lap. Introduce yourself. That would be a good way to start. Right, we've got a seat up here, and we got 3 seats. We got some seats up front. Can't hear me? Okay, good. How's that? Yeah, there you go. I think I'm in number 1 here. Right? Well, thank you. All right. Our goal is to encourage entrepreneurs. We will have 2 entrepreneurs make presentations today, followed by questions. Our goal is simple: to have creative people talk to other creative people in hopes that conversation and storytelling enhances the diversity of our economy by encouraging people to become entrepreneurs. As we always do, as we always should, we need to thank Susan Bates for letting us invade her tips and mixways. And I know at halftime she'll want to tell us about First Friday and all the bands that are going to be here. All right, we always encourage you to like and follow us on our social media postings. Do we have new folks? Please, students, raise your hands. All the students who are here because they love, I was going to say entrepreneurship, it's because they love points for grades, but they're here, but hopefully they will love entrepreneurs as well. But we're glad if those of you who are not students would like to talk to them at halftime, please feel free to do so. Our first presenter is Brandon Chonko of Grassroots Farms. So, come on up.
Hi, how are y'all? Good. I was hoping there was a podium up here. Something to hide behind. My name is Brandon Chonko. I own a farm. It's in Camden County. Can y'all hear me okay? Get close. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to sit down at some point. Believe it or not, I get kind of nervous in front of huge crowds, but let me put my sunglasses down. So I have a farm in Camden County in Waverly, which is about a half hour away. And I'm 42. My initial thought when they asked me to do this was I would get up here and say, hey, my name's Brandon, I'm an alcoholic. Get some laughs, right? But I actually am. I'm in recovery, and that is always my first thought when I say my name, is to follow it with that. And I've always thought that was really funny. I heard a guy say that he was at a huge business conference and actually did that, and I've always thought, man, that's just gold to do that. Some guy in the audience goes, oh, that sucks. So in the year, I've been self-employed since 2007, but my story divides in the middle, in the year 2012. From 2007 to 2012, I was in construction, landscape construction, fences, plants, stuff like that. I was also a practicing alcoholic, so I made a pretty good mess of things pretty regularly. I would have times where business would go well, and then I would sort of pull the curtain down on myself. And it came to a point, I had a family, and I had gotten into growing food, for myself, just trying to be healthy and wanting to know where my food came from, and it seems so silly to say that, where does my food come from? But it was a real question to me, and so I had started a garden, and I had some beehives, and started raising some quail and things like that. And I'm gonna sit down. There's a lot of faces out there. And so my life kind of came down on top of me, and I had been growing this food, and we lived in a neighborhood. We lived up near Athens, and I really didn't have a lot of prospects at the time, and the guy that helped me get sober, I said, I don't know if I can go back and do my old job, you know, it's just too intertwined with all this stuff. And he said, well, what do you like to do? And I said, well, I'm really enjoying growing this food. And he was like, well, why don't you do that? And I was thinking he was going to say, you can't do that. You know, you live in a neighborhood. And he said, well, why don't you do that? And I started telling him about it, and he was like, man, you're going to be a freaking millionaire. And I'm like, this guy's sicker than I am. This is great. And but I did. I started growing. I got a little field down the road, and I started growing chickens and stuff like this. And I would take the chickens, and they were dead, obviously, you know, and dressed out, right? And these are meat chickens, okay? And so this is it up near Atlanta, and I would take them into restaurants and just do cold calling. If you're in business, I'm sure you're in sales, you gotta do cold calling. I didn't think of it as cold calling at the time, but I would just go in, find the person I was supposed to find, you know, get past the gatekeeper, everything I've since read. But I didn't know at the time. I just knew that I needed to get this chicken into the hands of the chef because the line cook probably doesn't care, or this person doesn't care, or whatever, but I needed to get it in front of somebody and tell them my story, and that's what I started doing. So I picked up restaurants pretty rapidly, I guess you could say. So, and we lived in a neighborhood. I had a food distributor call me. The president of Inland Seafood called me and said, and Inland Seafood is not a small distributor. They're pretty large. They're based out of Atlanta, and he called me and he said, hey, I had this chicken at a restaurant and we want to carry it. And I'm thinking, who is this? Like, I'm just a guy growing some, I live in a freaking neighborhood. And it started to be like, man, this is really something. And so they did. I ended up having Inland carry my chickens. We moved from up near Athens to Reedsville, which is about an hour and a half north of here. I rented 30 acres there. There was a small trailer. I tell people the best years of my life were literally spent inside of a single wide trailer on 30 acres in Reedsville. It was going from alcoholic hell to a total different life. It was living in the country. I had young kids. It was sort of isolated, and business seemed like the sky was the limit. It really felt like this is going to be big. The one problem I could not, if you produce meat, every business is faced with its own problems. The big problem with producing meat is that the majority of the meat produced on the planet is produced by about 10 corporations, not companies. I'm talking massive corporations. The food that you eat is controlled. When people talk about food security, they're not just blowing smoke. Literally, your food supply is controlled by just a handful of corporations. And what that's done to small farms like mine is I have to do things in a way that the government has to see the final product, and they have to inspect it, and they got to put their stamp on it. The problem with the way that it's set up now, back in the day, 50 years ago, there was a lot of these little processors. That's what you call a place where you take a live animal and they slaughter it and cut it up, and then you can sell it. It's called a meat processor, a slaughterhouse, whatever. There used to be a lot of these, but there's not anymore. So my problem with an Inland Seafood, and really a big hindrance to growth, is I don't have a way that's reliable a lot of times to get this product out to the public. And so, and that's not really my fault. And I feel like that's sort of part of the battle that I've kind of come to enjoy about all this, is the challenges like that. And so Inland was carrying my stuff, but there was literally one chicken processor that would do, if you weren't contracted with Claxton Chicken or Purdue or whoever, all those companies have their own processing facilities, but it's not like, oh, Brandon Chonko with Grassroots Farms can take his chicken and pull up at Claxton Chicken and they'll do my birds too, and then put my label on it. they don't. There's one in the whole Southeast that does. So you get into this thing where it's like there's no choice, you know, it's just incredibly challenging. I could get into all that, but obviously it was more at the time I was so excited to be doing this, but I didn't even realize that, you know, I never really went about all this with a grand plan. You know, it was more of an impulsive idea that kind of blossomed and grew, but I never really, if you ask my wife, she'd say, well, you're always changing gears. And I kind of did. I always changed gears, but it wasn't because I wanted to change gears. It was just because I didn't know a lot about, as most of us don't nowadays, the food, how that works. Once you're inside the belly of the beast, how it works to go to the grocery store and buy a steak, right? I had never, you go down that rabbit hole, man, you're gonna find some stuff that you don't realize. They don't teach you that in high school. They don't teach you how all this stuff works and how this gets to this point and how tax subsidies work and this and that. How can something be so cheap when it's costing me way more to produce it than I can buy it cooked at Walmart? You know, and it's like there's tons of interesting little side stories, I guess. But long story short, Inland Seafood was carrying my stuff, and I found myself being one man trying to supply a food distributor with something that I couldn't even control the processing of it. At the end, I can put in all the time to raise these animals outside in a way that you can't buy it. You can't go to Winn-Dixie and buy that kind of meat anymore. But at the very last second, I'm losing control because I don't own the processing facility. And the way that that's set up is like you're not gonna. So the inland thing sort of fizzled eventually. And I came to a moment where it was like, is this just done? You know, I mean, I bring up the alcoholism because there's certain characteristics I think that a lot of people that struggle with substance abuse probably have, like impulsive, super stubborn, probably pretty resourceful. So a lot of that stuff that enabled me to continue on that path for so long really helped me continue on the path of having the farm, you know, because it was like a challenge. It became like a kind of a rush every day. Are you going to survive? You know, are you going to be able to? And there was a moment where I thought, I'm done. I'm just done with this. It's not going to pan out. I had bought property in Waverly, which is, you know, in Camden County, so it's closer to metropolitan areas. And there was about a year that I just didn't do anything at the property. I was just letting everything fizzle out. And I was just kind of lost. And it came back, it's funny, but it came back to the beginning when I started trying to, I kind of asked myself, why are you doing this anyways? Do you do this because you want to be rich? Do you do this because Inland Seafood, you know, it's like, and I kind of started answering and saying, I don't care if Inland Seafood carries this stuff. You know what I mean? I care that I can eat good. I care that the guy down the road has a choice, even if he doesn't want to take that choice, even if he thinks this guy's full of shit because he's selling that organic meat and it's so expensive. He still, at the end of the day, has that choice to buy it if he wants. My kids get to be exposed to certain things that other kids don't get exposed to. And I like it. I like the fight. And so when I got hold of that, it came back to where it was in the beginning, except I sort of had direction. It wasn't just, I'm going to do this and oh, you want to, you know, and is that my time up? Yeah, a little longer. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's hard to condense it. It's hard to condense all this into 6 minutes. But it did. It came back to that sort of thought. And the way I went about that was I had to go back and do damage control from having this major food distributor carry my stuff. You know, there was tons of accounts that was soured on. Maybe their sales rep didn't do a good job, or maybe this, or maybe that. And what I kind of decided to do, another problem with what I do is you're sort of always vulnerable. Everybody, go find a restaurant out here that doesn't say organic, local, blah, blah, blah on the menu, right? And, well, I'm here to tell you, it ain't that easy. If it was that easy, I would be rich right now. But there's a ton of people that want to talk the game. It's not as easy as how it's all laid out. So what I kind of did was, I said, I have this product, I'm gonna find people that are truly into it, and I'm gonna form a route around that. So that's what I do now, is I have a route that I supply restaurants in Savannah, St. Simons, some in Jacksonville, a couple in Atlanta, and I do my route. And these are people that I trust, and I feel like they're not gonna take advantage, they're not gonna pull the rug out from under me, they're not gonna take advantage of me. And then my challenge now, being that when we lived in Reedsville, it was like there's not a whole lot of opportunity for retail. The economics in a small town are super different than they are down here. And there's, you get all the ills of a small town. And so down here, my challenge is that there is, I think, an opportunity for some retail sales, which is something I've never really explored, but that's sort of where I'm at now. And so it's sort of the problem with that is that you're not gonna really get this stuff into a Publix. They have ways that they buy, and I'm not scaled to be in a Publix, but I'm gonna figure out ways to be creative. Maybe it's a pop-up, maybe you do online ordering, and then we have central meeting locations and stuff like that. And it's the same as the restaurants. It's like, I feel like it can be for people that are into it, whether it's for taste, to get that old school taste, or for health, or maybe somebody wants to eat protein that has been fed non-GMO. Whatever your reason is, I feel like the people that want it will seek it out, and the people that don't, it'll sort of fizzle out. And so that's kind of how I did it. I mean, I don't know, I'm a hustler. I mean, if somebody's wanting to be an entrepreneur, they said this is to inspire entrepreneurs. I mean, I'd say one big thing is that you'll come to a million points in the road where a normal person would stop, or they turn around and say no. And I think sometimes you just got to be crazy enough to keep going. You know what I mean? You got to believe in what you're doing and keep going, and be willing to put it out there.
As I tell class, every entrepreneur has a story. That's a hell of a story.
That's only a small part of it.
Well, no, that's great. Well, I know it's just a small part of it. I also, one of the, and I've taught my entire life, which means I've never had real work, but I know in retail we need to have an address. So what is the address of your farm?
Okay.
In case we needed to go by and visit or buy something when you have the ability to sell it to us.
Well, I do have the ability to sell it to you now. I have since solved some of the problems. I sell a lot more pork now, I should put that out there. The pork didn't have the same challenges as the chicken. It did have some challenges, but I can sell retail cut USDA stamped pork. The farm is in Waverly, which you may not have ever heard of, but the website is thegrassrootsfarm.com. You can also find me on Instagram at grassrootsfarmga, and then my cell phone number, if you want to text me and say, hey man, I want to buy some sausage, that's totally fine. My cell phone number is 770-624-7859. And you're welcome to reach out to me, for sure.
All right, we have time for a couple of questions. Oh, no.
So, what percentage chicken versus pork is your total business? And just a quick plug, if you follow him on Instagram, you will not be disappointed. Among his other skills, he is an incredible sort of short form writer, and that's a little bit of an entrepreneurial thing that you do as well as some of that for other people, right?
Right.
So,
right.
What percentage chicken versus pork, and where does your writing inspiration come from? Because it is hilarious stuff.
Well, I'll say, okay, the writing stuff first. When I first started the farm and got sober and got kind of clear-headed, I thought you need to be on social media. And so I got on social media, and it's like, well, you're a farm, so you need to represent what a farm is. Well, it's like, how many times can you show a picture of a chicken, right? It's like, it's not engaging in the slightest bit to be dry and like, this is what I do. At some point it's like, okay, you've broken through the barrier. Now these people that follow you know that you have a farm. So like, how do you let them get to know you? And what I started doing was, I kind of said, I can just be me. I can just be myself, you know. And I started just writing about whatever. And I used to really enjoy writing when I was in college. I have a history degree, and I liked writing, but I knew that writing was hard to make any money. I never tried to do it for a living. But what I found when I started writing my own story was that I really got a lot of people that it sort of resonated with. And through the years, it did turn into something for me to where I said to myself, you know, you might be able to get paid a little bit to write. And so I do. I'll write content for other businesses. I feel like I can write in other people's voices just as easy as I can write in my own tone and sort of internal cadence, but I can tell your story just probably as effectively as I can tell mine. And that's nice, you know. There's something, it's a nice change of pace to go from the toil of a farm to writing, but the farm work gives me a chance to think a lot too. And then the ratio of chickens to hogs is now probably 90% hog. The hogs have been something for me that I got into doing pork on a deal that ended up going terribly south. There was a barbecue restaurant up in Atlanta that kind of took advantage of us years back. But through that, we did get into doing a lot of hogs. And I stuck with them because where we're at in the world, it rains a lot, the weather can be unpredictable, and you have to have something that's hardy, and they're kind of tailor-made for life here. They don't get bothered by the rain. These are farm hogs. They're not piney woods wild hogs. But the rain doesn't bother them. The cold doesn't bother them. The hurricanes don't bother them. The only thing that really bothers a hog is to be hot, but there's shade, there's trees, they live outside. I rotate them around in paddocks, so they're kind of clearing land for me and improving soil as I move them around, and they can get out of the element, so it works out pretty well. Plus there's a USDA pork processor that's a half hour away from me, so that works out well.
Brandon, you talked about having customers that you can trust, which certainly is important, very strategic, but who do you go to? I mean, do you have a mentor or someone that you can cry on their shoulder every once in a while when things are tough, or you just need to bounce an idea off? Is there someone in your life that helps you through tough periods?
There's no. I do have I have like acquaintances that I've gathered over the years. A lot of that is though I don't. And I used to have a guy that worked for me that we were really close, and he went back to college and got a degree. I think he's a psychologist now, but we were close like brothers, and it was great having a sounding board, because that is one thing that's really difficult about what I do is I'm usually alone, and it's hard to shoulder the load a lot of times if you're just by yourself. Man, when you have one of those days where it's just not panning out, you know, it's like, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna go take a nap in the truck or something. You know what I'm saying? And because it's nice when somebody else can shoulder the load and kind of call you out, you know, and say, no, this is a stupid idea, or no, it's not. There are people I can go to though, but I feel like that's really important. I wish I had that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, one last question.
I got one, Skip.
Okay.
I don't need that.
I know you don't.
Good story, well told. I really like your delivery, good job. I'm just curious about the numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers of pounds, number of birds, number of pounds, number of hogs. What are you doing right now in terms of just quantity?
Okay, so my restaurant route that I do, I typically do bi-weekly. And it'll usually consist of 6 hogs. It's 6 market-sized hogs. So each hog dresses out roughly around 200 pounds. And then they get sold to these accounts. They don't necessarily, they're not sold whole, right? This may be too much, but yeah, that's right. When you take a hog, weighs 200 pounds, it's hard to carry it around. Plus, you're not going to get a lot of restaurants that want to buy. It's just a lot to, they don't have the manpower a lot of times to break down a whole animal like that. So I break them into primals, which would be like 2 front legs, take the middle, split it down the back, 2 equal sides, and then 2 back legs. So it'd be usually 6 of them every 2 weeks. And then I recently got back into eggs. We used to do before Hurricane Matthew, we were doing about 400 dozen eggs a week. I got out of that after the hurricanes, but I've since got back into that. So the egg production should be where we're doing maybe 100 dozen a week or something like that. And then the chickens and the kind of off items like that, it's not a ton. It's maybe 150 birds every 2 weeks. When at one point it was maybe 600 a week with inland. But it sort of, I've just kind of learned to follow the doors as they open up. You know?
Do you accept visits?
Yeah, I do. But you got to let me know. It is a working farm, and there is, you know, the sad part about it is people always say, God, I bet you love this. You're sitting on a rocking chair out there in the country. And like the reality, man, is that I'm never really there. I'm there, I feed, I do my stuff, and then I got to go. I got to go make money. You know, I got to go sell. You know, and so, but yeah, you call me or text me, come out and check it out for sure.
Well, that's super. Thank you very, very much, Brandon.
Thanks for having me.
And to prove you are here, we have a little swag
Sweet.
for the truck when you
Yeah.
nap.
Appreciate
And
that.
let's take about a 7-minute break.